Minneapolis sees another violent riot, and a second snowstorm may be building off the East Coast. I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Tuesday, January 27th. This is Evening Wire. Another riot broke out at a hotel in Minneapolis last night as President Trump shakes up the leadership of the immigration operation there. Daily Wire immigration reporter Jenny Terr has the latest.
Minneapolis saw another night of chaos as anti-ICE protesters stormed a hotel believed to be housing federal officers, smashing windows, vandalizing the building, and throwing objects at people inside. Those inside were forced to barricade the lobby as the mob attempted to push its way in. Meanwhile, President Trump met with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem for nearly 2 hours in the Oval Office, according to two people who spoke to the New York Times on the condition of anonymity. The meeting followed Trump sending border czar Tom Homan to Minneapolis. According to the Times, Trump did not suggest that Noem's job was at risk during the meeting. Here's Trump speaking bluntly to the press this morning.
Is Kristi Noem going to step down?
No, I think she's doing a very good job.
As the Daily Wire reported, Noem and her advisor Corey Lewandowski are on one side of a growing divide in the Trump administration over how it handles immigration operations, while Homan and acting ICE Director Todd Lyons are on the other side.
As for Lyons, a Minnesota judge has ordered the ICE chief to appear in court over potential contempt. Daily Wire reporter Amanda Prestigiacomo reports.
In a ruling issued late Monday, Judge Patrick Schiltz of the Federal District Court in Minnesota said that while his order for Lyons to personally defend himself in court was an extraordinary step, he felt it was called for. The judge said, quote, "The extent of ICE's violation of court orders is likewise extraordinary. The order revolves around the case of an Ecuadorian man who entered the country illegally decades ago and has been in custody since being detained on January 6th. The judge did give Lyons a way out of appearing before the court, saying that he'd cancel the hearing if ICE let the illegal immigrant go."
President Trump announced an increase in tariffs on South Korea this week after the country failed to ratify a newly negotiated trade agreement. Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips has more.
The president reached a deal with South Korean leader Lee Jae-myung in July, but South Korea's legislature has yet to take action to approve it. In response, Trump said tariffs on vehicles, lumber, pharmaceuticals, and other products would rise from 15 to 25%. The agreement includes hundreds of billions of dollars in South Korean investments in the U.S. That's a provision that raised concerns among South Korean lawmakers, who worry it could place significant strain on the country's economy. South Korean officials, reportedly caught off guard by the tariff increase, say they plan to meet with U.S. officials in the coming days.
India and the European Union have finalized a sweeping free trade agreement aimed at expanding access for European vehicles and goods. Announced today, the deal connects markets representing nearly 2 billion people, making it the largest trade agreement the EU has ever completed by population. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen celebrated the agreement.
We did it. We delivered the mother of all deals. And this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies, a strong message that cooperation is the best answer to global challenges.
The pact fits into a broader pattern of countries beefing up trade partnerships to hedge against uncertainty in U.S. trade policy. Earlier this month, the EU concluded a separate free trade agreement with 4 South American nations.
A U.S. Circuit Court just untied the hands of ICE agents in Minnesota. A Biden-appointed judge ruled on January 16th to bar agents from retaliating against anyone engaged in, quote, peaceful and unobstructive protest activity. The judge also barred stopping vehicles without reasonable belief that those inside are forcibly obstructing or interfering with immigration agents. But on Monday, an 8th Circuit Court panel said the ruling was too broad and too vague, blocking enforcement of the order while the Trump administration appeals the ruling.
The cross-dressing Antifa leader who incited violence in Minneapolis over social media has been kicked off Venmo and Instagram. Daily Wire reporter Brecca Stoll has the details.
Just hours after the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy by Border Patrol agents on Saturday, a self-proclaimed Antifa member named Kyle Wagner decided to post a video on social media. In the video, he encouraged his followers to bring guns to anti-ICE protests. Wagner said, quote, "We're done with peaceful protests. Get your effing guns and stop these effing people." Wagner said the Second Amendment would be his supporters' only protection from, quote, literal Nazi gunmen. After his rant, he made another video, this time asking for money. He linked his Venmo account and told his followers to send him large sums of money for his, quote, emergency freedom and defense fund. Wagner also said he couldn't tell them what he was going to do with the money. Hours later, Venmo deactivated the account for violating its terms of service. Users attempting to send funds were met with an error message from Venmo stating, "We're sorry the transaction cannot be completed. Please contact the person you are trying to pay." On Monday, Wagner's Instagram account was deleted and he appears to have been removed from Facebook and TikTok as well.
The Department of Education just took a major step toward pulling funding for Minnesota's education and high school sports agencies. Daily Wire reporter Zach Jewell explains.
The Education Department referred its Minnesota transgender athletes investigation to the Justice Department on Monday. The Democrat-run state has so far refused to negotiate with the Trump administration on the issue after the federal government found that the state violated Title IX by allowing boys to compete against girls. Now, Minnesota is close to losing its federal funding from the Education Department and the Department of Health and Human Services. The DOJ referral comes as the Trump administration targets Minnesota over allegations of massive fraud. Education Secretary Linda McMahon wrote on X, quote, "As Minnesota reels from a fraud scandal, Governor Tim Walz is fighting to keep men in women's sports. Now he'll have to make his case in court."
Trump officials have issued a new wave of takedown orders to national parks nationwide. Daily Wire senior editor Virginia Kruta has the details.
President Trump's executive order restoring truth and sanity to American history targets signs and exhibits that push what it calls, quote, partisan ideology around climate change, environmental protection, and the settlers' mistreatment of Native Americans. This directive seeks to scrub federal institutions of leftist narratives and remove content deemed, quote, to disparage Americans past or living. Signs and exhibits across Arizona, Texas, Colorado, Utah, Montana, and Wyoming have all been edited or removed. Kristen Brengel, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the National Parks Conservation Association, spoke against these changes, saying, quote, "Everyone understands this history. It's not debatable, but they're being forced to select stories because they think the administration will threaten their jobs if they don't."
The Fox Forecast Center is following a developing storm off the East Coast that could pour fresh snow on areas still recovering from the last one. Experts say to expect heavy snow from the southeast coast on Saturday up to the mid-Atlantic and around New England on Sunday. This comes on the heels of the last snowstorm, which has affected millions of Americans across the nation, leaving more than 500,000 without power. If you happen to be in affected areas, follow your local forecasts, prepare as best you can, and stay warm.
Democratic Socialist New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani dropped a bit of left-leaning levity on a late-night show last night. As Tonight Show host Jimmy Fallon ripped through a slew of storm-themed political jabs, Mamdani tossed in a policy joke.
It's so cold in New York City, the rent froze itself. Good night, everybody. All right. Thank you. But seriously, stay inside, stay warm, stay safe.
Freeze the Rent was a prominent feature of Mamdani's campaign. It's still the top item on his website, and his administration is shaping up to make dramatic moves in New York City housing that critics warn could do more damage to the housing situation.
Three of the world's largest social media platforms are in court today for a bellwether social media addiction case. Daily Wire senior editor Joel Needler has the details.
The case alleges that Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube knowingly designed their platforms to get children and young users addicted. The case before the California Supreme Court was brought by a 19-year-old woman referred to as KGM, who claims her social media addiction resulted in crippling depression, body dysmorphia, and suicidal thoughts. The case is part of a coordinated effort across the country that includes hundreds of similar cases where litigants accuse social media giants of fueling addiction. The KGM trial will likely put Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg on the witness stand, where he will have to answer questions in front of a jury.
Meanwhile, in France, the French National Assembly has voted to advance a bill that would ban social media for children under 15 years old. Modeled after an Australian law, the bill now advances to the French Senate. With vast bipartisan support, the bill is expected to soon become the law of the land. Centrist lawmaker Laurie Miller spoke on the dangers of social media as she presented the bill, saying our children are reading less, sleeping less, and comparing themselves to one another more. This is a battle for free minds. A 2024 poll showed nearly 3/4 of the French public support a social media ban.
All right, this is your drive home updates. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. And in case you missed it earlier today, we covered some major stories, including a productive conversation between Governor Walz and President Trump, the Minneapolis protests revealing an organized network, and the FDA moving to bring more medication out from behind the counter. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another full edition of Morning Wire.